education and coaching towards helping them get a job.
Yeah, I need to get this. This is kind of like my.
You got perfect. What is up, course clients? Hope y'all are doing well. What's up, Matt? What's up, Claire? What's up, Jenna? What's up, Costa? What's up, Celeste? We got a bunch of cool people on here. Hope y'all are doing well. Curious, before we dig into the cool stuff, I'd love to hear from some of you guys what kind of like offers you're running, what's your course about, what is your target market, and then we actually dive into the good stuff. Matt, do you want to share with me what you are up to?
Hi there. Yeah, so my program helps people retrain to become professional computer programmers. So it's education and coaching towards helping them get a job.
Yeah, I need to get this. This is kind of like my.
You got perfect. That's cool, Matt. Thanks for sharing. Claire, what about you?
Yeah.
I've got my microphone on. I don't even know where I'm set.
What's up, Claire? How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. My course helps people to transform their lives when they're stuck in a health crisis or health crash and they feel lost and overwhelmed. And I teach them how to rebuild their awareness of their body and tune in their lifestyle habits and diet to get their life back.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. Beth, what about you?
Hello.
Hey.
Can you hear me? Okay, great.
I can hear you.
Hi, great. Good. How are you? I help business owners discover how to maximize their business and their lifestyle without sacrificing their family.
I love it. I love it. So let's dive in. I will mute some of you guys so that I can kind of like cut out the background noise. If any one of you guys have like any questions throughout the presentation, please make sure to unmute yourself because I won't have the Zoom interface open because we will be running a PowerPoint presentation. So just unmute yourself, and if you have any questions or if something is confusing, just let me know. So welcome you all to the Effortless Messaging Workshop. It's a workshop all around how you can basically, with a simple 3-step process, book around 3, 4, even 5 qualified sales calls a day. It's a workshop that, number one, we have shared in multiple higher ticket masterminds and programs like Andrew's, like Traffic and Funnel, Cole Gordon's group. And it's a pretty cool process that is not really, being shared from a lot of people. So I'm super excited to get that workshop out to as many people as possible because we got incredible results from people using it. And it's also kind of like relieving most of you, or pretty much everyone, going through the process of that salesy approach of just having to kind of like doing door-to-door sales just on Messenger. So super excited to getting that to you. Also, some of you wrote down some questions or sent me some questions over a Google form. We will answer those at the end, but let's just talk about how the next couple, I'd say 90 minutes will look like. So from about 3 p.m. till 3:40 p.m., we will talk a little bit more just about the framework itself, the mindset behind messaging, and the entire mindset when it comes to messaging people and booking strategy sessions on Messenger. So part of that is reverse engineering the strategy session, the biggest challenge to overcome, buyer defense mechanisms and triggers, building trust one-to-one or one-to-many, the 4 biggest mistakes people are making in Messenger, managing your Messenger leads to kind of like overcome the overwhelm of a filled Messenger inbox, rules of engagement, and then a 2-point checklist. We will do a quick break. So since in my own experience, as soon as I talk more than like 45 or 60 minutes, people get a little bit exhausted. So we're going to do a break of about 10 minutes. You guys can hop off for 10 minutes, or we do a little bit of ask me anything in between. So whatever is best, but this will be about 10 minutes. from 3:50 till 4:20 p.m. We will actually go into the scripting. I'm going to give you guys kind of like a word by word process that you can use. I will also give Ben the slides so that you can either, put together your own script, or you can just use the slides itself. But basically, it's about the 3-step messenger process, which is the approach, the date, the pull, how and when to follow up. And then at the end, again, we do some Q&A and AMA, and I will go over the questions that you filled out. So I hope y'all are feeling good and are good to go. So let's dig right away first into the high level process on how a strategy session is booked on Messenger. So the goal of the conversation is to book a call. I usually highlight that because when I review Messenger conversations, there is so much rapport building and friendly relationship building that it seems like that most people are looking for soulmates instead of clients. So it's important to make that distinction whenever you guys are in Messenger. Hey, it's about to book a call and not to make new friends or something like that. We are here to change lives and not to be really a friend of someone. At least that's my kind of like mindset when it comes to coaching. So kind of like the condition so that we can book the strategy session has 2 parts. Those are kind of like the 2 beliefs that someone has to have that they are actually open to book a strategy session with you. Number 1, the prospect feels his problem. Number 2, the prospect believes that you might be able to solve it. You don't have to solve their problem in Messenger. You just have to give them a sense of certainty that you're actually able to solve their problem. Now, the milestones of a conversation is number 1, an open conversation. We don't want to interview someone. It has to be an open conversation. Then permission to get to know the prospect situation. Covering the 2 beliefs, that's the condition that I just talked about. And then obviously booking the call. The 3-step process is the approach, the date, and the pull. Now, I called it that way because a good Messenger strategy has a lot of similarities with dating. Now, the reason why basically so I'm running a coaching company called Influence and Impact Coaching, and we are all about helping our clients building organic marketing systems. And part of that is obviously Messenger that leads to the call. Now, the reason I came up with those systems is because before I started my own business, I was a nightlife promoter. So it was my job to get as many people as possible into the nightclub. And obviously, the easiest way to do so is talking with people on social media and inviting them to the night or to the event that we have planned. And most of the things or the systems that I used back then are pretty much the same as when it comes to booking a strategy session on Messenger, because what it all comes down to is building a lot of trust. So when it comes to dating, when it comes to building trust or a Messenger strategy, it's number 1, it's an art, but it's also a science. Certain things are just proven to work. Certain processes in that strategy, they are a science, they work, but there's also a part of it that is art. That's, I could give you guys, a word by word process, a word by word script, but it probably wouldn't work out that well. Same thing with, sales scripts. So when someone is just religiously reading from a sales script, you just get that sense on the other end, and it just kind of like feels a little bit uncomfortable. So there is also, that's the art part about it. So just being a human and understanding where the conversation is going, what is going on right now, that situational flexibility. With that being said, let's cover the basics before we actually get into the step-by-step process. The biggest challenge we have to overcome in a messenger conversation are buyer defense mechanisms. Now, buyer defense mechanisms come up more so because the sophistication level of a market. There was a really good copywriter, probably the godfather of copywriting, Eugene Schwartz, once wrote a really good book called Breakthrough Advertising. And he basically came up with different sophistication levels of markets, which basically means that sophistication level number 1 is basically, or probably about, no one ever heard of your product and no one really, had that need of your product. While sophistication level 5 is, well, there are tons of people selling the same thing that you sell, and it's a pretty big desire that people have. And there is also kind of like a low barrier to entry, what we see in the coaching space. These days, everyone can start an Instagram account and calls himself a health coach, a business coach, a relationship coach, which means there is too much opportunity out there and people are shopping for solutions, which means they are pretty aware of what you do, right? So when you use a messenger process or the classic frameworks, probably a coach or an internet marketer knows what you're up to, compared to an everyday person who is not really, into internet, who is not really into social media marketing. You have a bit more room to play because they don't really know what you're up to and they don't feel sold as fast as others. So biggest challenge is to overcome those buyer defense mechanisms. Now, you guys have probably realized that yourself. Sometimes a simple question, kind of like, hey, how's business, can pretty much be like, oh, that guy wants to sell me something. He wants to qualify me. He wants to know more about my business. So simple frameworks that are getting used over and over and over again, or certain beliefs can trigger kind of like a treat response, which means as much as once it is triggered, they're dug in and hunkered down in protection mode. So they ghost you, they don't open up, they know they're getting sold. And as probably most of you know, people just don't really like to get sold. So it takes a time to re-engage the conversation again. So yeah, we have to kind of like figure out how we can overcome those. And as less trust is built with the prospect, as higher is the chance to trigger one of those buyer defense mechanisms. And the number 1 trigger is when people feel like they're getting sold. So asking invasive questions out of sequence like, hey, what are you struggling with? Or what is your goal in 2020? Without any context can lead to an immediate, as we call it, ghost. So you don't get a response, or kind of like something like really, rude. So a hate response, or a defensive response at all of like, hey, you're qualifying me, I'm not interested. And since, again, most of us are in highly sophisticated markets, there are not a lot of markets anymore that are not sophisticated. We will use the approach that I'm laying out here is a soft value approach that builds strong leadership and allows us to re-frame invasive questions in a non-salesy way. So that when we ask someone, hey, what are you struggling with? We actually reframe it to their own benefit so that they're a little bit more open to give us insights on what is going on in their business, in their life, or whatever your service fulfills. So trust is the most efficient and emotional and logical act to overcome buyer defense mechanisms. So in a second, I want to take a look with you at how to build trust on a high level. Before we dig into that though, intimacy beats authority. Now, a lot of people ask me, well, Miles, I just started my business and there are competitors like Tony Robbins or Sam Ovens or in whatever space you are. And it's like, how should I ever be able to beat that competition? And the cool thing about it is that intimacy is much stronger than authority. That's why, not every one of us is just buying Tony Robbins low ticket products and are actually looking for a coach that we just met on social media or we just had a messenger conversation with. So having the ability to do intimacy marketing, having intimate conversations is really powerful, especially if you don't have a lot of authority. Now, with that in mind, it should be your goal to build authority, because having authority is much more efficient than having to build intimacy with people, because your brand does a lot of the talking for you. Your authority does the talking, which allows you to be much more aggressive in Messenger and much more open, because you just don't have to build as much relationships. Because ultimately, what people care most about is to find that one coach that helps them to solve their problem the fastest. Right? So if you're a brand, if you have that authority, people essentially don't really have to like you, but just know that you can get them to where they want to be the fastest. That can lead to a buying decision. I hope that made sense so far. If not, just unmute yourself. And we will also dig into that a little bit further down the line. But let's talk about how we build trust, and especially how to build trust one-to-one, which is basically a messenger conversation, or how to do it one-to-many. So building trust one-to-one basically works as much as you attract the messenger conversation. Or let me start that in every communication, in everything we do, there is always you as an entrepreneur and your actual offer. So what I've learned is that ultimately your energy and your intention before going into a conversation can do a lot of the work for you. I really feel like that energy can be felt over great distances. So back in school, I hated school. When I walked in a room with a lot of people, like, I don't know, a history class, and everyone was bored, it was hard to not feel bored because it was just the entire energy in the room. Same thing goes on in a messenger conversation. So your energy and taking care of your health, taking care of your physiology, taking care of your mindset, and those kinds of things are really powerful when it comes to your communications, but also your offer. I mean, if you have an offer that no one wants, you can be as good as you want in Messenger and people just don't want your offer. So as better the offer is, and as more you put that in alignment with who your ideal client is, as easier the entire conversation will be. Also building trust. An offer can build a lot of trust for you. But thinking about the approach, so when I explain the process of building trust, I think of a baseball field that has different bases players have to run to. Now, sometimes some of your players run a home run, right? So basically you meet them on Messenger and they end up as a strategy session within about 5 or 10 minutes. Or someone saw one post of you somewhere on social media and wrote you that, hey, I want to work with you. That post was awesome. Now, that doesn't happen that often and is also not so reliable. So the goal of what we want to achieve is that we can move our audience from base to base to base to base. Now, how do we get from that first base to the second one? That happens, number one, through attracting the conversation. That can be as simple as a cold outreach message, or can be when you reach out to someone that engaged with your stuff, or you re-engage with someone, just having the actual conversation, sliding into the direct messages. And then we want to bond. This is also called rapport building. And this is the art part of a messenger conversation. So building rapport that lowers defense mechanisms, but also doesn't drag itself out for days, because again, we're not looking for soulmates. As soon as we had that rapport, we are in a position of where we can pre-sell the person. And pre-selling our prospect is pretty much covering the two beliefs. So we make them feel their pain and we make them understand that we might be able to solve their problem. And I give you guys frameworks and scripting about that. And then sales is the actual invite to the strategy session. And ultimately, we got the delivery, which is the ultimate strategy session that you're going to have with your prospect. Now, this is one-to-one. We can do the same one-to-many. And the fun thing about it is it's actually pretty similar. So we do that with content marketing. So we have an audience like an email list, like a Facebook group, Instagram following, or whatever you really use as your platform. And we basically attract our audience by content, or manually by friend requests, by joint ventures, or whatever other options. And then we bond with content. Yeah, so, and we bond with content. This can be, you sharing your story, you being inspirational, actually giving people a sense of, hey, I know you, by sharing who you are, and basically build that bond with people, and you build that know, love, and trust factor. As soon as this is built, People are open to get pre-sold, which is also the content we use where we actually lead people onto a strategy session. So those can be offer posts, indirect offer posts where we tell people, hey, we actually got something that could be cool for you, or we leverage our content to educate people and make them feel that we have a process that they need without actually having to do a direct call to action. Sales is the actual strategy session, and delivery is ultimately how you deliver your services. So I hope that made sense so far. Can I ask, someone is not on mute. Can I ask, because quickly, people here on mute. There we go. Sweet. Now, if we build trust the same way in both scenarios, one-to-one and one-to-many, wouldn't it be more efficient to focus on one-to-many ultimately? Hell fucking yes, it is. Your positioning in the market, the authority you build, can either support that buyer defense mechanisms or eliminate them. So if your Instagram profile or Facebook profile has a bunch of Hello Kitty photos, or you complaining about the weather or politics, this can essentially lead to people not wanting to engage with you a lot. And without even knowing your offer, they just don't want to talk with you. In a positive sense, your brand, your authorities should also push people away, that are not a good fit for your program, right? So focusing on positioning is super powerful and just makes the entire effortless messaging process easier. Now, if you wonder about heck miles, I came here to learn how to cold message and to get people without having to write content. Don't worry, it works. It will just be harder than when you put in some time each and every week and actually get your name out there and build authority. But your positioning in the market, for some strange reasons, people naturally have a tendency to trust celebrities. People naturally have a tendency to trust doctors. So if you can be the celebrity doctor in the industry, you win. Now, just putting that in perspective, in no means do I want to be disrespectful, but if we imagine that we are somewhere, summer vacation in a bar, and George Clooney walks in, and George Clooney asks you if he can sit next to you and can enjoy a drink with you, there's a much bigger chance that you say yes than when I would walk into the bar and ask you if I could sit next to you and drink a glass of wine with you. Because just alone the positioning of George Clooney builds a lot more trust and curiosity that people want to know more about him than me, who probably you have never heard of before. So same thing is in your marketing. When you are getting your name out there, make people think of you, and get into the conversation that is going on in your prospect's mind, you can build a lot of trust just by simply writing content. And there is a cool thing as well called top of mind awareness. So as more consistent you are, and as more people read about you, see your name pop up in their feed, as more they naturally will trust you. Because as more we think about something, as more we value it. So as more people think of you, as more they will value you. And that's the cool part about consistency with your content marketing, but also messenger conversations, to not forget to also follow up with your people. Every single interaction builds a little bit more trust. It's like a water drop that falls into a dam up until the dam breaks. There's also more to it though. Here is some helpful data. Now, this is not properly backed up. It's actually a coach of mine, a mentor of mine, who shared that data with me. And based on my own experience, that is actually pretty accurate. So when we think of your entire market, all the mothers you're helping going through burnout, or all the people you're helping to get into, you know, a computer business and programming business, they're 100% your market. About 50% of those will never ever work with you. They just don't resonate with your brand, or they don't really need what you have. 45% are in something we call the slow lane. So those are people that might need what you have, that are kind of like in alignment with your brand, but they don't need it yet. They probably need it in 90 or to 180 days. Then we got another 4%. Those are the people that are actively seeking, or actively and passively seeking for your offer. So they have a need and they're looking for it. Now, those are the people that can buy from you pretty much from today on up until like 90 days. And then we got about 1% who is actually ready to buy now. Those are those conversations you reach out to someone and you have the strategy session booked within 5 minutes without actually having a lot of interaction built with those people. Now, without an organic ecosystem, without positioning, without, building a Facebook group or building an email list or somewhere where you can capture your interested people and nurture them, you pretty much lose 49% of qualified prospects to your competition. So if you constantly just chase new prospects, you have to find those 1%. And that works, but it's a painful process. And I wouldn't recommend that. So having an ecosystem, I personally recommend a Facebook group because it's the most powerful ecosystem in my opinion, because it's really interactive. And I tend to call it a crockpot. So a lot of people that met you, that went on a strategy session with you, that heard of you, they join your Facebook group, and by your content marketing in the Facebook group, you nurture them, you put them into the crockpot, and they're getting warmed up until they can't say no anymore, and end up as a client. And yeah, again, if you just focus on the 1%, it's an endless race of chasing a small part of people. And keep in mind that a lot of people using Messenger too and chase the same 1%. Also, a study said that people need about 4 to 11 touch points to even consider working with you. Now, you can overcome that with a good Messenger conversation, but just to keep in mind that follow-up is crucial, even with people that you had a strategy session with. So we will actually go at the end of the presentation over a process that we use that is called reoffering. And that's for all of you guys who had a bunch of strategy sessions in the past, or just had strategy sessions in the past with people that were a good fit, but they said no on the conversation. Now, instead of just not following up with them, I'm going to give you guys a process on how to get them on the phone again. Because what happens is on that initial strategy session, you might make 40% of the sale, but they weren't fully there yet. Now, if you follow up with them and get them on the phone, you can fulfill the last 60 probably over a second or a third conversation. Now, if you don't follow up, a competitor of yours has the same advantage. He just has to do 60% of the sale and literally steals your prospects. Same thing goes for your competitors. Since not a lot of people are following up, there is a lot of potential out there by, getting those people on the phone, and it's actually going to be easier to sell them because they're already, they're probably already 8%, 80% there, but not fully. So you only have to do the last 20%. So keep in mind that follow-up is super important. Want to show you another data that is more backed up. Sorry for the horrible picture, but basically this is a reversed funnel, and it's basically all about audiences like a list or your Facebook friends or whatever. And it basically says that 10% of that audience are actually have the intention to change. 3% of those are active buyers. So they're currently shopping for a solution. 7% have the intention to change, but are not actively seeking for it. So our goal is to get those 10% on the call. And then we got the lower 90%. Those are 30%, they have a need or they look like a buyer, but they're not ready to act. Those are the ones, when we have strategy sessions with people that are not a good fit, we spend an hour with them and then, they don't move forward because they're just not ready to change yet. And kind of like an annoying process, especially if you have a bunch of strategy sessions each and every day. Then 30%, they do not have a need. They just don't need what you have. And the last 30%, those are the ones that will never buy from you. They might have a need, but are just not in alignment who you are with who you are. So our goal is to pretty much only get those 10%. So when you think of a Messenger conversation, if you get ghosted, if someone calls you out, if someone doesn't want to jump on a strategy session, you can actually be grateful, because most likely they're a part of the lower 90% and they won't enroll as a client. Your goal in Messenger is to find the ideal strategy session. You don't want to talk with tire kickers. So be okay if someone tells you, I'm not looking for help, or why are you qualifying me? Because they are not in a process of buying something. Because if they would be in the process, especially if they are in the 3%, they're actively seeking for a solution. So if you're reaching out to them and they need what you have, they will give you that sense of appreciation when you actually reach out to them and talk with them. I hope that makes sense so far. Then now we got a little bit more into the nitty gritty, the teenage girl framework of using Messenger. Now, I think that is slowly starting to push through or come through, but please stop sending those massive paragraphs to people. Because when you pull up your phone, open WhatsApp or iMessage or whatever, and you actually open a conversation with a close friend, spouse, crush, or something similar, in most cases, we want to message the exact same way on social media. Because it is our goal to build a relationship with those people. And right in a second, so basically, informality is usually the name of the game. I say usually because it has to be in congruence with surface level positioning. What I mean by that, it really depends on who your market is. If you talk with a like Fortune 500 executive, you probably have to talk a little bit different than with me, a millennial digital entrepreneur, right? So with that in mind, informality is usually the name of the game, simply because when someone texts you in a formal manner on social media, how does that feel? Most of the time it's like, oh, that guy wants to sell me something. When you get those huge paragraphs and they're really formal written and kind of like really have that formal framework, it just doesn't feel, you immediately, oh, he wants to sell me something. While informal manner, who texts you in an informal manner? Most likely your friends. And it's kind of like our goal when we build trust, that we also kind of like get into that framework, that people trust us and see us kind of like as friends when we message with them, people that they can trust. So alone using an informal manner can help lower buyer defense mechanisms. So please stop sending huge paragraphs to people, because it is, number one, annoying to read. It's the same thing with copywriting. Usually we want to have 1 to 2 thoughts per line max, because if you have more, it's just tiring for the eye and not as attractive to read. So put 1 thought, maximum 2 thoughts into 1 message than writing people a little book in 1 message. And yeah, don't be too concerned about, oh, does that sound super professional? Does that sound too friendly? It's, show up as you would usually write with, a colleague, a business colleague, if you have more so a business-minded ideal client, or like with your friends when it's more, in the fitness space, everyday people, that works really well. So break up your messages into tiny bits and do not send copy and paste messages, because number one, as a cold message, Facebook will block you. They are getting more and more restricted when it comes to cold messages. But also, it's just that immediate impression of, oh, that guy doesn't even have the intention to know me or to get to know me better. He just wants to sell me. So put a little bit more time into the messages, put some more thought into it, and break them up into tiny bits. Hope that made sense. Now, a question I get a lot too is, should I pretend to be busy? Should I use emojis? Should I use slang? And that's a good question, but most of the time also a sign of overthinking the entire process. But let us talk a little bit more about congruence with your positioning, matching the prospect. So a rule of marketing, probably also life, is we are magnetically drawn to people who are just like us. So if you have a crystal clear picture of your ideal client, what are the psychographics? What are the demographics? What do they stand for? What do they stand against? And, you know, how do they talk? And being able to match those values and the behavior, it will make you more magnetic towards those people. So when you know what your kind of like ideal avatar needs to see to be attracted to a conversation or a piece of content, and what he has to hear to give you their attention, to know what is going on in their mind, what is kind of like the day-to-day conversations they have, that can help you a lot with content and in messaging. So as a simple example, you know, you write different with a Fortune 500 CEO than a college student who wants to start a side business. It's not just how you write, it's also how you approach the conversation. With a college student, you're probably going to build more of a relationship than with a Fortune 500 CEO. A Fortune 500 CEO is most likely a lot busier and also much more open to a direct approach. When someone messages me and kind of like wants to sell me a service, I rather have a really direct approach of like, hey, I checked out your website, I checked out your funnel, I checked out XYZ. Here's what's wrong, and here's what I would do in your situation, and here's what I can give you when we work together. If someone is that direct with me, that is much better than trying to get me into a kind of like, you know, rapport building a lot and then talking around the bush, beating around the bush and those kinds of things. I don't have time for that. So I rather have someone being direct. But when you work with people that are not so busy, it's okay to build a little bit more rapport, to build a little bit more trust. Again, internet marketers versus everyday people. An internet marketer is much more aware of what you do, is much more aware of the questions you will ask him, of the framework you use, than someone, yeah, I mean, who doesn't have to do, who doesn't have a lot to do with internet marketing, with messaging, and those kinds of things. So being very clear on who your ideal client is important. And as a minor addition to that, if you can match energy levels, it can be helpful. So if those people use a lot, if your prospect uses a lot of emojis, you can use emojis too. And kind of like matching the energy he is using while writing, while matching kind of like how he's writing. That can help. But it's usually a part of overthinking the process. But I want to still make sure that you guys have that in your tool belt. Now, the 4 biggest mistakes is ignoring inbound and no positioning at all. So again, not putting any time into getting your name out there, because it does a lot of trust building for you, as mentioned before. And your messaging should be in congruence with your positioning. So when you message, when you write content one way, people expect you to also show up that way in Messenger. So if you just be you and don't pretend to be someone else in content or in Messenger, that helps. Also, trust reached a low point. I think that was a study made from a sales guy in 2010 or 2012, that there was never, you know, trust is such a low point that it requires a lot, again, of rapport, like that it requires rapport building, that it requires to build trust, that people are actually open to talk with you on the phone, and content can do the heavy lifting for you. And as less authority you have, as more rapport you have to build. It's again, intimacy beats authority, but if you have authority, you have to build less intimacy. Being overly attached to a single conversation or beating up a dead horse. Now, again, there are people that will never work with you, and they give you fairly clear signs in Messenger already. If people are not responsive, it's probably not someone that you should force on a strategy session or continuously, you know, try to invest into the relationship or into the conversation, right? So if someone doesn't want to talk with you, if someone doesn't want to respond, if someone ghosts you, be okay with it and move on, right? Also building a little bit of situational awareness. As more guys, as more you message, as more you guys will figure out who is probably in that fast lane, who is really invested right now and wants to make something happen ASAP, and who is more passive. People that are more passive, let them be passive. Don't force them. Don't sacrifice the relationship out of your, because you're so aggressive and force people on a strategy session so that they ghost you and, never ever want to talk with you again. Ultimately, the money is in Messenger. So no ongoing conversations means no appointments, ultimately no money. So as more appointments you have is better. Now, obviously, if you run ads, that's awesome. That does the job for you when it comes to conversations. If you do organic marketing, it's about ultimately having conversations. Now, as more qualified those conversations are, as less you need, but ultimately the money is in those conversations. And lastly, thinking too linear, lacking situational awareness. Keep in mind that you're talking with a human being. It doesn't matter if you had 50 Messenger conversations or one that day. It's still a human being behind the phone. So don't behave like a robot, kind of like trying to put a random human into a rigid system. So be open to, I'm giving you guys a script, but also a framework. Be open to leverage the framework of, okay, that is the direction I have to go, but I'm willing to play around and be human. So same thing goes in sales. You can just read those 20 questions from top to bottom, or actually be open to have a conversation and see, where the conversation is going and have that situational awareness. That makes sense. Managing your Messenger leads. Who of you sometimes feels a little bit overwhelmed in Messenger because there are so many conversations? Definitely me. So it's kind of like tough to, identify who of those people are qualified, who should I message, who shouldn't I message, and especially it's a super time-consuming process. So most people tend to waste their time while messaging. So shooting the shit with people and finding a soulmate instead of setting some time apart in the day where you just focus on messaging. We call it the Facebook Power Hour. So you just focus on messaging for 60 or 120 minutes and you don't do anything else than messaging, right? And your goal, you set a goal of, I want to walk away with 1 or 2 booked strategy sessions. And that's the goal for the Power Hour. And that kind of like prevents you from doing things you shouldn't do on Messenger, like building too much rapport or however. But I also, guys, want to give you some engagement priorities so that how can you start qualify those conversations. So we got urgency 1, urgency 2, and urgency 3. Urgency 1 are inbound leads. Those are the people that reach out to you. We have a hot list. Those are all the people that you once that were very close to the point of booking a strategy session with you, people that already told you, you know what, I'm in the Bahamas right now, but I'm coming back home in a week and I'd love to talk. Those are those immediate opportunities that are just about to book a call with you, or they are in the last stage of the Messenger process. So the 2 beliefs are covered. Those are the ones you should focus your attention to. And there are tools used like Chrome extension that you can use. There's something, I guess it's called messengerfunnels.en. It's $20 a month and you can tag your Messenger conversations on desktop. So you have a little tag on each conversation and you can label it after U1, U2, U3 if you want. That helps you to organize and manage your inbox. I don't use it, but a lot of my clients are fairly happy with it. Then we got urgency 2. Those are the people that came from offer posts. So let's say you did an offer, you ask people if they want to have a training, something like that, and they raise their hands. So urgency 2, or highly engaged with your content, and you see that name coming up over and over and over again, or people that are in the dating stage. Urgency 3 are low level engaged. So that's kind of like the last resort we want to go to. Those are the people we have to cold outreach to, or, that last resort of, okay, I already went through my entire pipeline. There are no people that are already warm engaging with my content. And I still have I still have to book some calls. So we're going to reach out to low level engaged people. We do cold outreach, or they are literally, you just started to build the conversation with them. Let me check the chat for a second. Yes, I feel overwhelmed with so many people. When someone likes my post, I send them a copy and paste message like, hi, thank you so much for liking posts. I can see your SLP too. How is your teletherapy going? Honestly, again, I don't like to send copy and paste messages because, you know, it takes you 5 seconds to quickly send them a message. And I'm going to give you guys the framework on how to do that fast and how to reach out fast to those people. But you will see, like, we tested the data. We tested the data of, are we more efficient if we just send copy and paste messages, or is it more efficient to put in some more time into the conversation? We measured how many strategy sessions we booked. We always went better with individualized messages. There are certain things we copy and paste, but that's further down the line when we already built conversation. But we will talk about that in a sec. Again, there are softwares like messengerfunnels.en. What I do is I literally just go, when you are on Messenger on desktop, there is a function that you can filter the inbox to unread messages. Now, when I have a warm conversation with someone, but I have to do something and can't message anymore, I just put it on unread so that when I open up Messenger again the next day, I have all those messages filters and I go from the bottom to the top. That's what I do. But ultimately, it is overwhelming. Messenger is overwhelming. That is one of the downsides of it. There is not much to overcome it. The biggest thing is just starting to have more qualified conversations with people that are coming from content or inbound leads. So doubling down on your authority, doubling down on your content marketing will actually deal with a lot of the overwhelming Messenger, because most conversations you're having are actually qualified. As soon as they get cold outreach, it gets overwhelming because we have dozens of conversations going on in the inbox, and it takes time too. So if our content does the report building for us, we can pretty much jump right into qualifying them and booking the strategy session. It will be a bit easier. Now, again, so what you guys can use also in Messenger is probably you can print that out if you want. And you can always define where are you at in the conversation. So in here, we have the milestones. So as further you are in those milestones, as more warm that conversation is, and as more 80-20 that conversation is. So putting your focus on those will help. Also, you have the 3-step process. As more you use it, it will feel like second nature at one point. So okay, who of those people are in the date, in the poll stage? And yeah, so that also helps. Messenger is a skill. I built my business when I started. I built my business solely with cold outreach and Messenger to 6 figures. And based on that, it really became a skill because I spent days in Messenger and didn't do anything else than that. So I had, I don't know how many thousands of conversations I already had. So as more conversations you do have, and as more you make it a habit of just taking an hour a day and going through Messenger, as better you will be at it, because you have a framework. I'm giving you guys a framework that works, I guess, for eternity, as long as we use Facebook, because it's not based on trends or things like that. So it's more that framework will feel natural, as better and as more easier it will be for you. What I also want to give you guys, a good friend of mine, Cole Gordon, once came up with that highest to lowest leverage activities, and it's super powerful. So it gives you structure on what to do when you open Messenger. So whenever I have my Facebook Power Hour, that is my process. So highest leverage, highest priority is obviously having strategy sessions. If I have 5 strategy sessions a day, I won't do any Messenger. So I will put my focus rather on being mentally ready for the strategy session and showing up as the person I need to be than quickly squeezing in a 10-minute Messenger session. But when we don't have any calls booked, we want to start with clearing the hot list. Hot list, again, is a list that either you have a CRM system like Pipedrive or HubSpot or whatever, or you just have a simple Google Sheet that works too, where you just, you put all the names on there of people that are literally just about to book a call with you. And those are the people you hit up whenever, when you need strategy sessions booked, or those are people that were like, look, I'm really interested in talking with you again, but I'm home in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, but now is not the time. You want to put them onto your hot list because those are the people you can continuously go to and also build the relationship with them. So those are the really warm people. You can put them on the hot list. And every time you start Messenger, you go through them first. Then you clear the unread messages in your inbox. So you go from the bottom to the top. And what I would recommend you guys, when you do that process, don't get hung up in one conversation, because you can clear the inbox and then spend, 2 hours in one conversation that doesn't really lead anywhere. What I really just do, I clear it once, and then I maybe answer 2 or 3 people that are about to book, and then I do something else. And then sometimes later in the day, I go through the unread messages again so that I don't get hung up, like, handling 4 conversations that take me an hour or so. As soon as we cleared the unread, we want to respond to offer people. So when I don't know if you guys are familiar with 2 steps or direct offer posts, where we ask our audience to raise their hand. So that's the next priorities, going through those people, getting into the conversation with them. Then I also do have an holding and nurturing pipeline. So those are all the strategy sessions that didn't end up as a client. I go through them once every 2 weeks, or, once every week, once every 2 weeks. I go through that list to make sure to stay in contact with them and see if they need anything. Then we have the long-term follow-ups. I usually don't really do that. Those are, the people that you talked probably with years ago, and you can follow up with them again. Then Messenger rehash is basically, you can go through clearing unread again. So going through the unreads again, then warm outreach and cold outreach. So most people I know, they do it reversed. They start with cold outreach, then warm outreach, and rarely ever have follow-up list or have a referral or like have a list with follow-ups. Keep in mind that it's easier to book a strategy session with a relationship that is already built than continuously building new relationships. Make sure that you follow up with your people. This is the easiest way to book strategy sessions. And to help you set a goal in general or be productive, I'd highly recommend to set a projection on, okay, I'm going to do 2 hours of messaging and I want to walk away with 2 strategy sessions. What that allows you to do is sometimes overcome your BS, because in some situations we get emotional and they're like, is he ready for, getting asked to jump on a strategy session? Isn't he ready? Because most of us, if not all of us, have some sort of a fear of rejection. And yeah, we probably get the most rejected on Messenger. So that kind of like creates some resistance of just sometimes asking people for the strategy session because we feel like we are getting rejected, while they're actually, they feel their problem and they believe that you might be able to help them and they will be ready to jump on a strategy session. So when you set a limit and a goal, you get a little bit more aggressive at the end and you kind of like look over your inbox and you're like, okay, so that guy is really close. Let me wrap that strategy session up. And you get a little bit more efficient when you just set a goal of, I want to book a strategy session or 2, or just setting a clear goal. So Beth, good question. What do you mean by 2-step? So 2-step people, those are offer posts. A 2-step, as an example, how I teach it my clients is anyone interested. So you write a post and anyone interested in a training that I gave my clients, or anyone interested in the process we use with our clients on how they can book 10 strategy sessions a week, comment below. And then they all comment below that they're interested in your training, and your ideal client basically raises their hand and they are already more qualified and easier to get in a conversation with than just reaching out to someone out of the blue. So those are offer posts that you do, or you do a direct offer post like, hey guys, I'm opening up my program to 10 people. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's what you need. Let me know if that's you. Is it better to ask if they want a strategy session or your free playbook? It's actually a good question, and it depends on your positioning. We will actually dig into that. If you don't have any positioning, like number one, your goal is to book a strategy session, 100%. The only reason why you can use a free playbook is to build a little bit more trust and positioning. So let's say you never really did a lot on social media, or you never really sent a lot of emails. Now you're reaching out to someone cold and he doesn't know you. Now there is a chance that there is not enough trust, or that you can't build enough trust with just rapport building, that they will want to book a strategy session with you. So what we do is kind of like, hey, look, I have a free playbook for you. Go over that, so that that playbook builds positioning for us. They're like, oh wow, that guy is actually interested in me having a win, or in me moving forward, instead of just selling me. But also, if your playbook is really good, it's like, okay, wow, that guy knows his stuff, and they will be much more open to jump on a strategy session afterwards. So if you find yourself struggling with a lot of buyer, like having to handle or having really high buyer defense mechanisms, you can use the free playbook, reach out to them a day later, and are like, hey, I might have some more for you. I might have some more training for you. Is this something you're open to? And then you get them into the conversation. If this is a bit confusing now, don't worry. We will break apart the entire process in a little bit, and this all will make a bit more sense. But to wrap up, the goal is to book a strategy session, always. But if it helps to get them a playbook first, do it. Keep in mind the sales cycle will be longer. So if you can go for the strategy session right away, always do that. Some quick rules of engagement: know your outcome, book a strategy session, or make a low ticket sale. I don't know if some of you might have a low ticket course. Well, we have, like, you can actually sell $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 products on Messenger, but it requires a lot of trust. So that only happens usually with inbound leads. And so it's hard, but it's doable. But ultimately, what we have seen, you can easily sell products for $100 to $500, $600 on Messenger without having to talk with people, with actually the process we are using here. Or some people I know, they actually just sell tickets for events, high ticket events. Just know what is the outcome of your Facebook Power Hour. Is it to book a strategy session? Is it to make low ticket sales on Messenger? Is it to invite people to an event? Is it about getting people in your Facebook group? Stay focused on the outcome. And as an example, if your goal is to, book strategy sessions, you don't have to enroll them into your high ticket program right now in Messenger, which means you don't have to answer all their questions. You don't have to dig so deep as you would on a strategy session, right? You just want to book the strategy session, and the digging happens on the strategy session itself. So keep that in mind. Create and keep the doctor frame. I don't know if, I guess most of you know what the doctor frame is, but I think it's coming from the sales space of just being in that authority space. You are the doctor, you are asking the question, you know what's best for the prospect, and keeping that frame of kind of like superiority, I guess it's called. So having that superior posture and being the one that is asking the questions and is having the frame of the conversation, same as in sales. You don't want to get overrun from someone. It's you who is managing the conversation, especially when you guys are in dating or in pull. In report building, it's a little bit different. I mean, in dating, you can, or in report building, it can be more of an equal posture of a back and forth. But as soon as you want to start to qualify them, you got to keep the frame. But I'm going to show you guys how that looks like. Say less, powerful too. Don't send people little booklets. Keep it short and conversational. Intimacy. Write like you talk. That's not just for copy a great advice, also for Messenger. Write like you talk. Leave curiosity. So don't answer all their questions right away. That's the reason to get on a call. And again, you're not there to answer all their questions. And the big thing also is show know-how, but show know-how. So you want to show them your know-how, that you know what they have to do, without showing them how to do it. And we use a framework called problem education that I'm going to give you guys also as soon as we dig into the process itself. 2-point checklist before asking for the call. Just repetitive real quick. Do they feel they're a problem? Just asking yourself, hey, do they kind of like tell you, yes, I have a problem, or I'm not where I want to be? Do not overcomplicate this. Don't be cringy. Don't be like, what's the worst part about that? How does that influence your sex life? As you probably would on a strategy session. Keep it surface, right? So could be a simple self-diagnose of, oh, what is keeping you from getting to 10K a month? And they tell you, well, it's my strategy session. It's my opportunity volume. It's enough pain. Or it's just like, also, if they tell you where they're at right now and where they want to be, that dissonance is also enough pain too. You don't necessarily have to dig deeper into that. And then ultimately, do they believe that you might be able to solve their problem? This is building moral authority through problem education, showing know-how. Cool thing about those two things, that's the science part. I'm giving you guys specific scripting that you can use over and over again to get there. Only thing, you have to be an expert when it comes to giving them a feedback that makes them believe that you might be able to solve the problem. But the framework stays the same. So whenever you have a messenger conversation and you feel overwhelmed, stop for a second and ask yourself, where are you at? Is this problem feeling his, is this prospect feeling his problem? Yes, check. Means it's about time to give him feedback on that problem. You give him feedback so that he might believe, so that he believes that you might be able to solve it. Check, ask for the strategy session. Now, I guess that's about it when it comes to, yes, that's it when it comes to the kind of like the big framework or the big, you know, mindset behind messaging. Now, if some people of you want to take a break, that's cool. I think we continue in 10 minutes. So if anyone has a question right now, or wants to ask me whatever, you can unmute yourself. And or you guys can also tell me you're good to go and you don't want to do a break, whatever works best for you guys. But you can unmute yourself and ask me whatever you want to ask.
Hey, Miles, I have a question.
Sure, Aaron.
Does this scale to, well, you know, I guess I'm at the point where I'm thinking about, you know, I'm happy to be doing these things personally for a time to validate them, but is it something that can be outsourced really well to other people? So like people that I hire, to be clear.
100%. But, you know, like, what is your offer? What is it that you do?
I sell training to software engineers, professional development training.
Got it. So the way we outsource it, or the way we do it, is that we actually have our ecosystem. So this can be an email list, this can be a Facebook group, or whatever is most, you know, important or the most beneficial for your target market. And then we have appointment setters. So the entire messaging. So when we think of what I do, I pretty much only handle inbound leads. So people reaching out to me, and I don't do any cold outreach at all, because you're right. Cold outreach is not really scalable. It is, but I don't know if you want to scale that way, because it's easier, because you have to have a lot of team that is doing cold outreach for you. Social media is cracking down on restrictions on cold outreach. So Facebook blocks you if you send more than 30 a day. LinkedIn is starting to restrict as well. So it's not like back in the days, the cold calls where you were able to bash out 100 cold calls a day. So I'd recommend, when you want to scale organically, to do it with content marketing, because building the actual audience, building the email list, building the Facebook group will allow you to get, so what we do with our high ticket clients is called organic profit cycles. It's basically launches. So we build a Facebook group. As bigger the Facebook group gets, when we think back to where is it? When we think of this one here, when you build an audience, 3% of those are ready to buy at all time. As bigger your audience gets, as more of those 3% you have in there. So you can either get those 3% by messaging them, or you get them to raise their hand with content. And this can be with launch sequences. Now, this is much simpler because you prepare the launch sequence once, post it, people raise their hand, and you have qualified people on the phone. And those are also the people you can usually sell directly on Messenger. So we sell $9,800 products on Messenger because we build the trust with content. Now, this is how I would, how I imagine that organic marketing is the most scalable, and, getting away from the outbound marketing. And when you do outbound marketing, it's with appointment setters. So you hire people that are going through your Facebook group or forming your offer posts, reach out to the people and book the appointment for you.
Okay.
But for you as a person, I wouldn't recommend to do cold outreach when you want to scale.
Yeah, I guess, so I just want to make sure I understand it, because I think everything you've been talking about so far, which is very, very informative, by the way, thank you. Everything you've been talking so far about before this break seems to me like it's really in the regime where the total number of messages are between 1 and 30 per day. And now what you're just talking about just now is about how you scale past that.
Exactly. So the problem is, so we have been doing, like, I didn't touch ads for forever. So I don't want to do it because organic marketing is my jam. And for me, we really drove that classic organic marketing model of you write content, you message the people that interact with it, and you get inbound leads. We drove that pretty much to a point where it was exhausted. So I can tell you, you can probably get to 80 grand a month doing that while writing really good content. But at that point, it starts to, you're just living in Messenger. And for me, it's just mentally exhausted because number one, you have Messenger on all your smartphones. So you always have that inner conflict. Should I respond? Shouldn't I respond? Even in your off time. And next to that, again, it's no fun too. Honestly, I don't like to spend my days in Messenger. So getting people with content and with copywriting to raise their hands, it's just much easier, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Great. Thanks. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Miles, can I ask, I'm listening to a lot of what you're saying and trying to work out in my head, can I apply this to email rather than Messenger? So I'm in a stage where people are downloading the playbook, they're responding to the automated emails that say, let me know you got this, and I'm starting a conversation. And are there any sort of differences in using email rather than Messenger for this kind of process to get them on a call?
Obviously in Messenger, you don't want to do it as like with tiny bits, right? You don't want to send, each thought as an email. You probably want to make sure that you can put a little bit more into one email that you send, but the framework is going to be the same. So as an example, when you write, if you're into email marketing, 9-word emails, right? So basically getting people to, yes, I'm still interested to get to 60K a month or whatever you do. What you want to do in general with the Messenger approach we use is creating that 9-word email within a one-to-one conversation. So you lead the conversation to a point where you can ask them, hey, are you still looking to get from point A to point B? Now that works if you do it in a Messenger conversation or an email, the process is the same. So we build rapport with someone that you initially do with your email marketing, with the email sequence. And then you get into a process of, hey guys, I'm working on a training on whatever your target market is looking for. Who is interested for that? Shoot me back an email. And then the individuals send you back emails, and then you get into the same qualification process as you would in Messenger. So you will see when I break apart the framework, it's going to be the exact same. What is different is the art part, which is the report building. You build a little bit different report on email because it's not that responsive as Messenger. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, perfectly. Thank you. It's really helpful.
My pleasure. What else do we got? I saw some questions in here in the Messenger. So, hey Miles, I will just type the question. I have kids running around, but would appreciate if you can answer this. I'm in a weight loss space and cold messaging in weight loss is so over-dominated by MLM, 100%, like Oregon, Prove It, etc., that I almost dread using Messenger. What is the actual question? So yes, if the question if you're right, yes. It's pretty much the same thing as with, you know, messaging coaches. It's also a really saturated market. So your market is super sophisticated. So it requires to build more rapport and positioning within the conversation. I will show you how that works because we're pretty much in the same boat. It's more so a soft approach. With that industry, what won't work is that direct, heavy approach of like, you know, making pretty much a direct offer in Messenger that will build buyer defense mechanisms right away. When you write good content, do you have different lead magnets and funnels? So I use organic funnels. I don't use, I have some ClickFunnels funnels, but not like, you know, the classic, you know, VSL funnels and stuff like that. My lead magnets are dropped into Facebook group. So whenever I do, my initial goal is to get as many people as possible into my Facebook group, because there is my leverage to scale. What I just explained before is more people I have in my Facebook group, as more efficient my launches will be. So ultimately, my lead magnets are trainings that I do once a week in the group. So I talk for 45 minutes about, you know, how to build a Facebook group. To give you an example, we call those type of posts Netflix value loops. I was really, for quite a while, I really digged into the psychology of, you know, what Netflix is trying to achieve with their series, because for me, it's incredible that I'm a huge Netflix junkie. So for me, what it makes with me, sometimes like I tell myself to watch one episode of Friends and then I end up watching 10 without even really noticing it. So I was interested in how the heck is Netflix able to do that without ever asking me, hey, do you want to watch another episode of Friends? Or hey, turn in tomorrow for another episode of Friends. It just happens kind of like naturally. And this happens by opening up loops. So loops like, you know, right before the kiss in the movie, they switch the scene and you're like, what happens now? It's like an open loop. And we humans are driven to close loops. We're naturally driven by that. So when you can create loops within trainings, you can actually give away everything you have. You can blow people's minds by your good stuff, by opening up a loop as like, hey, I give you all I have when it comes to growing Facebook groups. But when it comes to monetizing Facebook groups, you got to reach out to me. So my training is so good about growing Facebook groups that people feel so confident that they're like, wow, I can actually monetize that, but heck, I have no idea how to monetize it. And Miles did just a great training. I got to reach out. I'm sure he has also a badass training on monetizing it. And especially if you give it away free, people are always like, wow, that's the free information. What is it like when I pay? So in all honesty, pretty much I give away all my good stuff for free in trainings, but I open it up with loops so that people are like, oh, I got to reach out. Or could be, you know, what else do we got? What other cool loops can you open? Actually just did a training about that and I don't even remember. If you guys want, we got a couple more seconds. I can show you guys that training that I did. I can show you guys those slides when it comes to the content that we write to create demand on demand.
Sorry, Miles, can I ask a question?
For sure you can.
Yeah, it's about that content. So
Yep.
how do you write content which you just attract freebie seekers?
So the goal is, you know, I'm okay with freebie seekers, but I get my clients by launches. So each and every, like all 6 weeks to 8 weeks, I open up my program officially in the Facebook group. Now I know that Ben probably hates launches because I once saw a video where he was like, you shouldn't launch. Now, here's the cool thing. We launch our program every 8 weeks, but we don't close it. We don't close the program. It's not like the launch is not built with scarcity of like, oh, only, you know, it's only open for a month or two. People can still get in afterwards. We build scarcity by giving for a certain amount of people a special bonus or a special workshop they can get in. That builds the scarcity for us. So, you know, when I write my launch posts, freebie seekers don't raise their hand because they know that's going to be expensive. So when I talk with them on the strategy session, they don't, they know that it's going to be expensive and not free information. But also, I would like, I don't want to mess up Ben's, you know, training or curriculum, or however that's called in English. But what we also do is like we have a low ticket offer that is low ticket enough to filter freebie seekers from buyers. So that's probably a $197 product that has a low barrier enough to entry, but basically filters people without talking to them. So everyone who joins the $197 workshop is basically at one point also a fit to join my high ticket program. And we build a huge buyers list of people that paid me $197 that are willing to put money into their growth. And our buyer list is so big that we don't have to talk with non-buyers anymore because we just have that list we can go through over and over again. So those are just some strategies you can use to overcome, you know, talking with freebie seekers. If you want to do it on Messenger, you just got to qualify order. You can just tell people like, hey, that strategy session is about, you know, investing into something.
Do you have a different email sequence then for those buyers who bought the low ticket item so that eventually maybe they might buy the high ticket item?
Yes. So in my low ticket offer, they actually get a 20-minute call with my team. Now, 10 minutes of the 20-minute call is about inviting them to another strategy session if they're interested. And also, you know, I do pretty much customized emails or posts to those people, but they are also getting continuously approached by my appointment setters. So they're like, hey, hope you enjoyed the workshop, or hey, how's it going? Did you execute on what you learned? We are currently launching something new that might be something for you. Do you want some more information? And we get them on the phone that way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome. My pleasure. So real quick to just close that loop that I just opened about the content that creates demand. And we have leadership posts, we have Netflix value loops, we have 9,000 feet view, trust and credibility posts, and engagement posts. Leadership posts are the posts that help your audience understand the true problem they're having. So those can be stories from past clients that you work with, from clients that you're working with right now that achieved the breakthrough. Those can be analogies. Analogies sell. So if you can help someone understand his problem or overcome his problem by an analogy, it's so powerful. Or you call them out on the limiting beliefs. You call them out on the limiting beliefs and why they should invest in a coach. You call them out on the limiting beliefs why they should quit their 9-to-5. You call out their limiting beliefs why they, you know, should do fitness or not. Those are the strong leadership posts where you take a strong stand for your audience. The limiting beliefs they have about your big idea. So the big idea is the thing that makes you unique. So kind of like, that process sounds good, but you want to overcome that in your content too, or busting myth or bringing the truth to the light. So as an example, one of the best big ideas from P90X Beachbody now was basically like, hey, you struggle to gain muscle not because of you, but because you don't confuse your muscles. P90X muscle confusion. So that is basically like, wow, that guy is right. It's not me. It's not me not being able to work out. It's actually the program that I'm using right now that doesn't allow me to grow muscle. So I just got to confuse my muscles and I'm going to have results. Who helps me to confuse my muscles? P90X Beachbody. So those are those leadership posts. Then we got the Netflix value loops, as mentioned before. So you help your audience get qualified for your thing. Basically, every training driven content should actually help your audience. So I know a lot of people are like, only give them the how and the what, only give them the what and the why, but not the how to do it. I'm not that same opinion because there's too much of that out there. So if your training actually helps your audience, but also helps them see a different way on how to get from point A to point B, so a revolutionary training, so like, oh heck, I don't have to send cold messages. I can actually do it with content and with launches, and helping them again, look, here's how you get a group ready to launch. Here's how you warm up an audience, but I don't tell you how to actually monetize it, right? So it's like, oh, wow. So I can actually make sales by warming up my audience and launching. Miles just showed me how to warming it up, but now I got to figure out how to launch. So who am I going to reach out? Oh, Miles, because he already showed me the first part of the chain. Then also you can show someone how to get leads, but you have to reach out for a paid course on how to close leads. And then we got trust and credibility posts. So those are, you know, personal brand building posts. So those are posts about you, building trust, matching their value systems, that what I talked about before, identifying with buyers. So sharing case studies, interviewing your clients so that people are like, oh, I am like client XYZ, so I can achieve too. And 9,000 foot views, or giving them a high level overview on how to get from point A to point B. So 3 steps to an organic 6-figure launch. Now, those 3 steps are much more complex than laid out. This is just a high level overview. If you need help implementing it, reach out to me. And then lastly, we got the engagement posts. They don't really warm up your audience, but they get more eyeballs on your stuff, because as more engagement you have, as more people will see your stuff. If you don't get any engagement, not a lot of people will see it, because Facebook limits the reach. Yes. And probably if you guys want that, I hope Ben won't kill me. Kind of like, I hope I don't mess up your plans or your marketing strategy, but that's the content rotation we use. 1, 2, 3, leadership posts, high level posts, and Netflix value loops, depending on current attention demand. Then 1 to 4 trust and credibility posts, 2 to 3 engagement driven posts. Sweet. Let us go back to the order. No, wrong one. I think it's this one. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. We got some questions here. I quickly go over those last questions. Do you recommend only having 1 to back and forth and messenger conversations a day with someone? Should I not have a whole conversation in my Facebook Power Hour? It depends. Yes, if it's going to lead to a strategy session and you kind of like feel it, he's just about to book the strategy session. I just wouldn't, you know, spend 2 hours. And I wouldn't spend the Facebook Power Hour in 4 conversations. Make sure your goal is to clear the messenger inbox. Any recommendation on building Facebook group when your program is totally new with no students? Testimonials yet? Just started. So the example I make, what I teach my clients is, especially on Facebook, if you want to open a Facebook group, your personal feed is the shop window and your Facebook group is the shop inside. So on the shop window, you do a lot of, you know, promotion to get people into the shop window. So you tell people about the cool trainings you're doing in there. You're telling people that, you know, doing like, there's all the cool stuff you're talking about, like kind of like loops again. So look, I'm talking about the cool stuff, but to get more of that, you have to join my Facebook group, or you make people, you know, you inspire people based on your story posts, talking about yourself. That makes people join your group, but it's kind of like that shop window. I use my personal feed is pretty promotional to just get people into my Facebook group. And in the Facebook group, they can test your products. They can see how it is. They can, you know, just, you know, get a taste of working together, where you share trainings and all of that cool stuff. And You don't need testimonials yet. Here's the thing. Again, intimacy beats authority. So you just got to build a little bit more intimate conversations and chase testimonials. So as more you have, as easier it will be, but it's not necessary.
I need you to calm down.
Oh, did I just?
You pulled the ball out. Trying to. That's what you pulled out.
So, let me mute here real quick. What else do we got? Quick notes on how to grow Facebook groups. So we can talk about that in a bit. Happy to share a bit of that stuff too. Where are you doing those posts on other people's Facebook groups? No, I do them on my own personal page. I don't really like to share stuff in other groups unless it is, you know, agreed on with the group owner. I mean, you can do it, but people are getting more and more aware of those posts, and you know, I don't like to post that much in Facebook groups, but if it works for you and you get attention and engagement, do it. But I rather just add friends to my friends list and get more attention on my personal feed that way, or your Facebook group grows organically anyways. Sweet. Let's move on. I know we are already, I'm talking way too much. So 3-step messenger process. How does that look like in the nitty gritty? So here's this 3-step process. We got the approach, the date, and the pull. The approach is the art, date, and the pull is the science. It's pretty much a copy and paste process here. Now, the approach exists out of slide into the DMs, open with why, connection statement, I have something just for you, do you mind me? The date, qualify, urgency, seduce, decision, the pull, proposal, handling remorse, confirm attendance. So that all probably sounds a little weird right now, but let's dig into it. I know it's really not that good of a font here, but I hope you can read it. I hope you can see the slide properly. But the approach, the macro of it. So the goal is an open conversation. A quick back and forth means it's not a yes or no conversation. Actually, both are pretty much equally invested in the conversation. And also getting the permission to know the prospect better. It's like you approach some guy or girl on the street, you get to know her, and probably see if you guys can go for a coffee or some dinner, whatever it will be. So an open conversation achieved by a connection statement related to what we have found on their profile and throughout the conversation in general. Permission achieved by leading with value and reframing the invasive questions to the prospect's interest. In general, always open up the conversation with the reason why. Why the heck do you reach out to that person? Don't be over-invested. Move on if someone doesn't want to talk. If it is a yes or no conversation, just move on. Genuine curiosity and humor is a great icebreaker. Find, like, you know, if you're genuinely curious to get to know someone and come in with that energy, hey, I'm actually interested in you and I'm not just here to, you know, funnel you through my messenger conversation and get to the strategy session as fast as possible. Like the prospect can feel that. And also humor, whenever I get called out from someone, I send them a funny video or so that makes them laugh. And that usually allows me to move on with the conversation. Find something to love about them on their profile, you know, so that you're actually curious to learn more about their person. Usually if you open up, your prospect opens up. Connect with what they're telling you, equal superior posture. What I mean by connecting with what they are telling you, just give them that sense of, hey, I'm actually listening. I'm not just here to get that conversation done. I'm actually listening and I'm connecting with what you are telling me. Instead, equal or superior posture. So usually in the approach, it's pretty equal, right? So, you know, he can ask you questions, you can ask questions. It's not like you don't have to be in the doctor frame at that point. Then we want to steer towards stating with a compliment and a soft question. So could be like, dude, I love your content. Have you ever considered starting a Facebook group? I think you'd be crushing it. So compliment, I love your content. Then soft question, have you ever considered starting a Facebook group? I think you'd be crushing it. Or I love what you do. Have you made it full-time yet? If it's a coach or whoever. yeah, it's crazy right now with the virus. Everything closed down here. How are you staying fit, dude? Bro, love the impact you're making. Generally curious how you manage everything, fulfillment, marketing, sales, and family. Just checked out your website and I'm loving it. Have you ever tried running traffic to it? Figured there's no Facebook pixel installed. ... So it's just, instead of asking someone, hey, how's business? Or what is your goal for the next 6 to 12 months? We went with that soft question to open up a conversation that allows us to give him some training or to give him some feedback or to come from a position of leadership. Hey, dude, I see what you do. Have you ever considered to do X, Y, Z? Or how are you doing X, Y, Z? So we are looking for a slight pain. Again, we want to find those 3 to 10% or look those 10% of people that are ready to buy now, right? That are having a problem right now. So I oftentimes use, dude, I love your content. Have you ever considered starting a Facebook group? I think you'd be crushing it. Because if someone doesn't have a Facebook group, I know that I have leverage to give him a lead magnet, to give him my Facebook group lead magnet, or to tag him on a training that I once created. But we will dig into that when you actually when you see it. And the big challenge for you guys here is to find a soft question that works for your market, right? And here it gets interesting. Those questions can trigger the buyer defense mechanism, right? So we want to test out different questions and see what is the response that we are getting. I usually recommend to go with 20 conversations or 30 conversations, test a soft question, see what's the response of those 30 conversations. Did they lead to getting them to a point where they want, where you can qualify them or not, and start improving your messenger conversations that way. We got some questions here, I see. Here we go. Chat, what we doing here? If you get a chance, I would like to hear, how do you engage with someone who is looking to increase confidence? I'm helping people develop constant confidence and live happily ever now. Can you give an example of dating with compliments in niche of someone looking for a partner? What about more painful thing? For example, when someone is burned out, stressed, and overwhelmed, how would I start with a compliment for that? I deal with moms that are totally overwhelmed and need to lower stress. So Gina, for you, it's like, wow, I'm really impressed by, you know, having a family, but also running a business. That seems, you know, I'm having a family and I know how crazy that is. Or that seems crazy that you can do, you know, that you can run a business, have a family. It seems like you are a real power woman. Curious, how are you handling stress? Or curious, are you ever stressed? Let me know, Gina, if that makes sense. Perfect. Costa and Sue, I try to come up with something, but it usually also takes me a bit of time to come up with soft questions. We can probably talk about it in the end, but Gina was just easy right now. But probably that works really well. So do you ever feel stressed? Question mark. And yeah, let's move on. So as soon as you got an answer on that, it's like, yeah, thank you very much. But yeah, I sometimes get stressed. And then you can be, yeah, I agree. I talked with a lot of moms recently struggling with that too. Really helps when you can, you know, just turn off in the evenings, or just taking you, Gino, as an example now, when you can turn off in the evenings, or, you know, just read a good book or watch some Netflix in the evening. Actually, one of our clients, Amanda, just did, you know, whatever her breakthrough was. It has to be a legit breakthrough. So actually one of our clients, Amanda, just had a severe burnout and came out of it by, you know, just taking 1 hour each and every night to take a bath or whatever. And then you actually lead with value. So you're basically like, hey, don't know if this is something for you, but I'm actually just about working on a training for moms that are running a successful business but are stressed out on how to overcome stress. Is this something you're open to? And this gets them into dating. Here's how that looks like. Word by word. John, like this, basically usually the first message I send, I just, you know, first name, send. Thanks for accepting my friend request. If they sent me, if it's actually cold outreach and I sent them a friend request. Thanks for accepting my friend request. Send. Now I'm using a lot of slang. That's why you can see a lot of dude and those kinds of things. But dude, I love that post about seeing the opportunities in wild times like these. How's the situation in Austin, man? So what I did here is I checked out their profile for 30 seconds, 20 seconds, saw that they wrote a post about, you know, how that person is seeing opportunities in times like these where COVID is going on. And I saw that he's from Austin. How's the situation in Austin, man? You know, it just basically creates an easy conversation with someone. How's the situation in Austin is fairly simple to answer. It's much simpler to answer than, you know, what is it that lights you up these days? Or what is it that, you know, those questions where I have to think about something, you know, I'm just too busy for that. So opening up with a very simple question while also giving them a sense of, hey, I actually checked out your profile. Or what also works really well is like, hey, Amanda, thanks for accepting my friend request. Just checked out your profile and love what you are up to as a health coach and the value you're adding by helping people to lose weight. And you can literally take that word by word out of their bio. If they, you know, that Facebook intro thing or on Instagram, love the way you're adding, love the value you're adding by helping them with XYZ, what they mentioned. And this is already like, okay, wow, that guy actually checked out my profile and it's not just some guy who wants to sell me right away. And then you get an answer. How's the situation in Austin, man? Yeah, I hear you. Similar in Zurich. Now, what you can do here is probably, you know, connect with what they told you. It's like, yeah, in Austin, it's crazy. Everything is locked down and I just can't stand it anymore at home. You're like, well, I totally get it. Same thing for me. I can't stand to sit at home, especially because I'm an extrovert. So just like, okay, look, I'm actually invested in the conversation. Similar here in Zurich, tons of coaches I've talked with are panicking, man. So I love that you're helping people with their focus. For how long have you been doing that? Number one, or you can ask a question, curious. What is it that you curious? What exactly are you doing for clients? Or curious, are you helping your clients one-to-one, one-to-many, or curious? Just, you know, actually being curious about something that is going on in their life. Keep in mind, this is the art part. So as more you get into the flow and you start to see, you have to become a good report builder, right? So this is super beneficial for messenger conversations when you are a good report builder. Also on sales conversations, when you're able to build some rapport, some genuine rapport, it's really powerful. Are these conversations with people that you are already friends with? I would never send a message to someone that didn't accept your friend request, especially not on Facebook. Never. Because you're heavily restricted and you also get into the inbox of requested messages. So always make sure that you message with people that accepted your friend request. Same thing on LinkedIn, I guess. So people that already connected with you. So this is the coldest I get. People that just accepted my friend request. Now, I come in with the soft question. So they tell me, well, I've been doing that for 2 years now, or I coach my clients one-to-one and I have some group coaches. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. You have some really powerful organic content going on, man. Have you ever considered starting a Facebook group? I think you'd be crushing it. Most trainings I have are about organic marketing. Now, I don't want to convince people of doing organic marketing because it takes too much. I rather talk with people that already do organic marketing and I help them amplify that. So it's a fairly good soft question for me. So you have some really powerful organic going on, man. Have you ever considered starting a Facebook group? I think you'd be crushing it. And then they say yes or no. And usually I'm like, if they tell me no, might me asking why not? And if you build enough rapport in here and connect it with their statement, connect it with them, what they actually told you, they will answer that question, right? And then they tell you, you know, it's just too busy. I'm already on multiple platforms. I don't know how to build a Facebook group. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Heard this a lot recently. Really helps to just repurpose content and get other people to bring value to the group. Just had a client, Amanda, struggling with the same. Send. and in the same message, like in the same paragraph, so you sent that bit, and then like actually wanted to do a live later this week about how to grow a group and generate 6 figures out of it. Happy to tag you on it as soon as it is wrapped up. I think it could be a game changer for you. Sending that, or also immediately, are you a member of my free group yet? So I will show you guys multiple options that you can use at that point. But this is basically the segue into dating. So we use soft question. Are you having a Facebook group? No, I don't have one, because cool, I hear you, really helps to just repurpose content and get other people to bring value to the group. Some quick value. Just had a client, Amanda, struggling with the same. And what that does is ultimately, number one, if you tell people, heard this a lot recently, it puts you kind of like into a position of moral authority, because who talks with a lot of coaches, who talks with a lot of people, probably an authority in the market, right? Or I see this a lot lately in the market. Who observes the market? Most likely an expert. Just had a client, Amanda, struggling with the same, also puts you into a position of, hey, I'm actually having clients, and it makes the conversation more business oriented. So the people that are not open to have a business conversation, they will drop off here. And then we lead with value. Actually wanted to do a live later this week about how to grow a group and generate 6 figures out of it. Happy to tag you on it as soon as it is wrapped up. I think it could be a game changer for you. Are you a member of my free group yet? If you don't have a Facebook group, that's okay. You can also be like, actually, just about to put the finishing touches on my lead magnet XYZ. Happy to give it to you as soon as it is finished. I think it could be a game changer. Send. Let me know if this is something you're open to. So it works with pretty much everything. I tend to say the training is not finished yet, because you will see the reason in a second. It's just easier to qualify them. But let me go over some questions real quick. I get so many messages. I think it's what puts me off of doing cold outreach myself. It's not just you, Jenna. A lot of people don't like cold messaging. And simple truth when it comes to business, if you are not okay with talking with strangers, you're missing out. Every business owner has to be able to talk with strangers, because strangers have what you need. That is money. So it's an inevitable skill. So you have to overcome the excuse of, oh, I don't like to get cold messages, or oh, I don't like to talk with cold people because I feel salesy. It's mostly coming up because you're scared of rejection or don't want to talk with strangers. Yes, Sue, you are getting these slides for sure. I'd much rather write content and do videos daily. Is that okay? Still the questions back. How do I get people to follow the page or join the group? Here's the thing. Your content will only generate conversations as soon as the content is and the message is dialed in. The only way to dial in the message is by talking with your target market. It will never be dialed in your head. So you got to talk with strangers inevitably at one point. So that is just a fact to overcome. It's just a limitation that we all, and I can tell you it's not just you, everyone hates to talk with strangers. I think that is also a reason why most billionaires are coming from a sales job, because in sales, they just had to talk with strangers and had to overcome that fear of rejection and that resistance. So that might be something. Now we transition. And again, we got a couple different, we got multiple options here, how you can transition. So you can try those different options, and success will depend on your positioning. As more authority you have, as more direct you can be. So the most direct one you can use in that framework is basically, yes, they joined the group now, and hey, just saw you joined the group, tagged you on the training that you might want to go over in the meantime, because remember, I told them that I'm about to go live at some point, right? Going live later this week. So to keep them warm, you can tag them on another training in the group, or you can also just leave that out and be like, hey, just saw you joined the group. And would you mind if I ask you 2 to 3 specific questions really quick? Just would like to get an idea how to make this group training we have talked about as valuable for you and everyone else as possible. So first invasive questions, this is the permission to get to know the prospect better. Would you mind if I ask you 2 to 3 specific questions real quick? In a sophisticated market, most people will agree to that, but they will be a little bit more skeptic. So we want to reframe it. Just would like to get an idea how to make this group training we have talked about here. We have talked about as valuable for you and everyone else as possible. What this does, it puts them in a position of, wow, okay, that training would actually be customized to my situation, but also I'm helping others and I'm a part of something that is bigger than I am. So I help create something awesome. This is why ultimately I always tell people that I'm about to finish the training, even if the training is already finished, because this is the most powerful reframe that we tested of like, hey, the training is not finished yet, but I'd like to ask you 2 to 3 questions so I can make it customized to you. Same thing goes for the lead magnet. If you're like, hey, would you mind if I ask you 2 to 3 questions really quick? Just would like to get an idea how to make this lead magnet training we have talked about as valuable for you and everyone else as possible. Most of the time, people will say yes. And now when we think of email conversations, this is pretty much the same process that you're using in email. Right here in the approach, we create the 9-word email by this question, right? So we have probably some report with them that is built by the email sequence. Then we write to our email list, hey guys, we are about to create a training on how to build a business. Who of you is interested? Shoot me back an email. And you go into the exact same process. So everyone who shoots you an email is like, hey, do you mind if I ask you 2 to 3 specific questions really quick? And then that is the transition that you do there. Then further on, that is the second process that you can use. Just saw you joined the group. Dug out a PDF for you that I share with my clients when it comes to Facebook groups, might be helpful to you. So if a lot of people ghost you at that point, there is not enough trust built and your market is really sophisticated. So we want to give them, instead of going for the qualification process right away, we first give them a PDF or a lead magnet, something like that already that is helpful. And then we reach back a day later, and are like, you know, bro, circling back, had a chance to check out the PDF. Our goal is that they are fascinated by our PDF in a state of mind of, I want to have more of that. So we are like, cool, thanks for the feedback. Happy you liked it. Bro, I'm just flashing out the outline of the training we have talked about. Would you mind if I ask you 2 to 3 specific questions really quick? Just would like to get an idea how to make this training as valuable for you and everyone else as possible. When we think of scaling, you just get them in the group and let the crock pod, aka your Facebook group or your email list, warm them up and catch them when you launch your offer, or when you do an offer post, or whatever you want to do. This is the transition. Now I want to go over some questions. I need to go as I have a client call in a few minutes, but I will watch the rest to catch up. Thank you for this. Oh, I'm sorry, guys, that this takes much longer than prepared. Usually, you know, I tend to talk a lot, so that's probably the reason. But good to hear that it's helpful. I can find myself in a bar and both you and George Clooney approach me to ask if you can have a drink with me, and I pick you any day. Yes, thank you, Matt. I love it. Sweet. Let's move on. So now that we transition from the approach to the date, the new macro, the goal is that we cover the pain and trust belief. Covering the pain achieved by creating a dissonance between point A and B and getting a self-diagnose. Covering the trust achieved by giving feedback, problem medication. I'm going to give you guys the framework. In general, Keep it short and straightforward, not more than 3 questions. Always go from least invasive to most invasive question and reframe it. Use trust-based language. Connect around what they say. Here, doctor frame, superior posture. The qualifying questions are just the 3 questions we ask. So when we ask him here, and would you mind if I ask you 2 to 3 questions really quick? Or about, number 1, a qualifying question. What is it that you do? Are you actually a good fit? Are you actually a mom who is stressed out? Are you actually a mom who runs a business? Are you actually a good fit for my program? That's just a usual qualifying question. What I ask is, what is it that you do for clients, right? So because I can't help anyone. Then what is the desired situation? Classic, right? So what is your goal in 2020? And then number 3, got it. And where are you at right now? And if you don't mind me asking, what is keeping you from achieving the desired result? So, and we reframe it. Give problem medication, feedback, or if you have appointment setters, or if you are kind of like, you know, you first want to qualify people on a 10-15 minute call, you can invite them to a triage call and give the feedback on there. And yeah, then invite for the strategy session. Here's how that looks like. So they give you the permission to ask them 2 to 3 questions. Now we get into the science part. You can literally, you probably have to change the questions for your own business, but it's the same process over and over again. So awesome. Thank you that I can ask you some questions. My qualifying question, what do you offer your clients specifically? Send. Then they give me an answer. Cool, cool. Again, I don't just want to ask question. I also want to connect real quick. Cool, cool. What is your ultimate, or what is your revenue goal this year? Or whatever, you know, you just want to ask your ideal clients, what is it, where do you want to be at the end of the year? What is your goal health-wise? How much weight do you want to lose? Those kinds of things. And then problem question, nice. And if you don't mind me asking, where is the business at right now? Where is, you know, the weight at right now? And what do you think is the biggest challenge in getting from there to the goal they told you where they want to be? Now, really important, before they answer us, we want to reframe the question in a way of, I have worked with hundreds of clients with a similar offer in a similar situation or whatever. So I can probably give you some extra insight or frameworks my clients have used to overcome the problem or to get to the goal they mentioned. So to lose 20 pounds or to get to 6 figures, build their business, if this is something you are open to. So we, again, reframe the invasive question, the most invasive question, to their own benefit. If you give me this, I give you that. I hope that makes sense. Then basically, they tell you what is the problem, what is keeping them. And then you're like, all makes sense. Are you open to some genuine feedback? Or you lead them right away to, hey, look, I got some thoughts for you. Do you have 10 minutes later today or tomorrow? I'd love to share with you some frameworks that we have used for our own clients, and get them on a 10-minute call. Or you go into problem education. This is what I do 99% of the time. And this is basically showing know-how without showing know-how. This basically works as totally hear you. So let's say my prospect told me my biggest problem right now that is keeping me from getting to 6 figures is lead generation. I'm like, totally hear you that lead generation isn't good right now. Send. And while this is a problem, based on what you have told me and through overcoming this with dozens of clients, I do believe that there is also a lack of alignment when it comes to your offer. So instead of answering the problem they actually have right now, lead generation, I put their focus on a new, bigger problem. I do believe that there is also a lack of alignment when it comes to your offer. 75% of the time, it's the promise, the positioning, or the big idea that is not in alignment with your ideal clients that leads to a lack of opportunity volume. Send. Without those big 3, no lead gen strategy will create lasting change because the problem is the engine of the car. Does that make sense? So I'm not giving that person one single piece of actual strategy, but I'm giving him, I'm of huge service because I shift his awareness, his problem awareness to another solution. Hey, look, it's actually not lead generation that is the problem. It is actually your offer. Now, what this does, he's like, wow, that guy knows my problem better than I know it myself. So he probably also has a solution without actually having to tell them what they have to do to generate more leads. This could also be, you know, totally hear that, you know, weight loss, that your diet isn't good right now. And while this is a problem, based on what you told me and through overcoming this with dozens of clients, I do believe that there is also, I don't know, a problem in the timing when you eat food or when you work out or in the fast. 75% of the time, it is not the actual diet, but more so the time when you eat that leads to, I don't know, a lack of weight loss or losing weight. And without having the right timing, no diet will ever help you to, or will ever create lasting change. Does that make sense? As you can see, I'm not a fit pro. I have no idea. But this is basically the problem medication we use. If you book with them a 10-minute call instead of giving it written, you do the same thing just on the phone. Lastly, we got the transition into the poll. If done right, in most cases, if done right with the feedback, they will start asking questions. Well, so when do I eat? Or how do I line those big three? Which leads to a call more naturally. But here again, some different options. So if they're like, well, okay, so when do I have to eat? And you can be pretty much immediate. It's not on here, but you can pretty much be immediately, well, look, I have some thoughts for you. Do you have time to talk sometime next week or sometime this week? Or basically, if you want to qualify them first, good question. Before we get into it, just curious if solving this problem is a priority for you right now. Because if it's not, we probably don't want to talk with them on the phone. If they're, you know, in the Bahamas right now, or if they're not, you know, focused on losing weight right now, they're not looking for a solution. They're not in those top 10% in that data that I showed you before. If they are like, no, it's a priority for me, you can be like, well, cool. Independently if you are interested in becoming a private client or not, happy to share some more thoughts and frameworks with you. Do you have time to talk XYZ? Basically, if I set up sometime Thursday or Friday, would you be open getting on a call? If they feel their problem, what they do by those questions, like goal question and problem question, and they believe that you might be able to solve the problem, which happens by giving them feedback, they will, to 99%, they will say yes to a call if it's a priority for them right now. Second one is awesome. Well, look, independent if you're interested in becoming a private client or not, I could share some insights on whatever problem they had, let's say lead generation or offer. So I could share some insights on offer frameworks that I've used for my own clients and how they generate 30K a month consistently, or whatever their goal is. If I set up some time for that, would you want to talk Thursday or Friday? Send. Or as mentioned before, cool, got some thoughts for you. Do you have time to talk Thursday or Friday? Send. And then we're basically in the poll, which is by far the easiest part of the conversation. So the most difficult one is probably the report building, then the dating, and then the poll. All it is about is booking the call, confirming the call. If you want, you can send some social proof or lead to the tag page, and then confirm attendance. The poll micro. You can either book the call with them manually or with a booking link. It really depends. When you find yourself that a lot of your messenger conversations, you send them a link, but they never book, just do it manually with them. Like, hey, how does your, you know, Friday look like, 4 p.m.? They're like, cool, works. You send them a Google invite. And that's what I did for quite a while. But now, since I have appointment setters doing the entire setting of appointments for myself or for me, I give them a booking link. So when booking link, let me know when you booked in so I can make sure it comes through on our end, if you don't mind. I will leave the chat open. I will leave the chat open, creates urgency that they go and open up the booking link right away instead of waiting for hours to dig into it. Then confirm the call and persuade with social proof. There is a great book called Persuasion from, what's it called? Charlie Gorey. A great guy about, you know, how to persuade people before the sale. And this is really powerful. So looking forward to our call on Thursday. If you get a sec before the call, check out milesstutz.com league trainings and watch the 3 client trainings, especially the 3 rings of marketing one. It's all about what we just talked about. Happy to go over any questions on the call.